CAP unit was. And the combined action platoons were set up near the villages, and they had these areas where the idea was that you had a small number of American forces working with the villagers to try and more of a pacification program. At the same time, you were stationed where the bridges were, and you had a compound that you'd build out there to kind of give security along Highway 1, which was the main road going north and south within South Vietnam. So I ended up going to CAP Hotel 6. And so if you looked on a map and you had Phu Bai and you went south to Da Nang, in between the two was Phu Loc, almost midway. And so we were the first combined action platoon just south of Phu Loc. So we were, you know, a little better than halfway towards Da Nang. And so that was... That was a very different kind of an environment. So in December I went down there. I was there about 3 weeks when we got hit on January 7th of 1968. And that's a day that I will never forget. Actually, a night I will never forget.
What does Hotel 6 mean?
Hotel 6 was the was H Company of the way they designated the CACs, the Combined Action Companies. This was hotel companies, and the platoon was I guess 6. They just had the number. They had Papa CACs. They had the Hotel CACs, and they had, I think it was a couple of others. But that's what they just designated us, was Hotel 6. And there were basically 21 Marines, and we had approximately 20 South Vietnam, kind of their local militia types of individuals, the NIAC ones, the PFs, they call them Popular Forces. And so they were there as a part of the compound in the defense of the village, the community. And by the grace of God, during the day on January the 6th, we had a platoon of South Vietnamese regular Army engineers came up, and they stayed at our compound that night as they were heading up north. And so we got hit about 3 in the morning, and had we not had those men there with us, I have no doubt we would have been completely overrun. As it was, 7 out of the 21 Marines were killed that night, and I ended up on bridge security. John Calhoun, I think about John, he ended up getting a Navy Cross posthumously, but there'd been some promotions, and again, I'm kind of the new kid on the block there with them. I'd only been there about 3 weeks, and these others had been working together for some time in that local environment. And with the promotions and stuff, it kind of changed the rotation, because we had bunkers out on the bridge. At both ends of the bridge, there was a large bunker on the north end of the bridge, and what would have been the northwest corner, made out of railroad ties. And then on the southeast corner of the bridge, there was a little bunker made out of like just sandbag, just one sandbag thick, and it was maybe about 3 feet high, and just a small rectangular bunker that we had a couple of metal poles at each end, the kind you used for stringing concertina wire, barbed wire. And we just threw a poncho over that, so you had a little bit of a shelter. And so what happened with the rotation on who had to go out and do bridge security and guard duty that night, Calhoun would have normally been out on the bridge that night. And because of the promotion and the sequence change, he didn't have to go. And I remember asking John, I was saying, are you sure you don't want to take the bridge security and go out? And he said, no, you go right ahead. Because nobody really wanted to go do bridge security and, stand watch for several hours, and out there. But that night, I ended up on bridge security. So I was outside the compound when we got hit, about 3 in the morning. I mean, we got hit with satchel charges. That's the TNT types of charges, and the zappers, they called them, the guys coming in throwing that. We had Claymore mines all around the compound. All the wires to the Claymore mines had already been cut, so you had an inside job. Somebody had gotten in between the fence and the barbed wire and the main bunker walls of the compound and clipped all those so they didn't go off. And so it was a pretty heavy-duty fight. Probably the most interesting thing that night that happened to me was I was literally leaning against that bunker and firing. And there was nobody at the small bunker. I was out at the small bunker at that point. The others were back at the bunker, the larger bunker on the other side of the river, which would have been that northwest corner bunker. So, but I was there and I was shooting, and basically we were probably maybe 75 yards from the main compound. So we're right close to the main compound, but with the road running just straight this way, and here's the river, and the compound's like here. But I'm on the side of the river by the compound, and so I'm shooting down the road because they were crossing the road towards the compound in front of me, and I'm firing in that direction. And there's nobody over there by me, but as clear as I'm talking to you, a voice came into my head and said, "Move now." Just very clearly, it was nothing else. Move now. And I was in the front of the bunker at that point, leaning against the metal pole. So I had nothing in front of me. So I moved around to the corner of the bunker. And just as I put my rifle to my shoulder and got ready to start firing again, the whole thing blew up. Knocked me down by the river into a bunch of concertina wire. Busted my left eardrum and more concussion effects and some other stuff, but nothing serious. I crawled back up. I mean, I remember could hear the other guys yelling from the other side, yelling my name to see if I was still alive. And finally, as my head cleared enough, I could respond. But I looked back. I got back up by what was left of the bunker and laying there. And I looked around the front, and that post where I'd been leaning against had about maybe that much of it sticking out. A B-40 rocket had hit. Now you hear them talking in Iraq and Afghanistan about the RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, and that B-40, that's what those were. And he had me zeroed in, and by the grace of God, however, the folks on the other side, somebody was over there. Who knows who it was? Maybe it was my grandfather who crossed over at that point or what, but I don't know. Somebody, somehow, guardian angel or whatever you want to call it, somebody told me to move right now. Since that day, I've never had any doubt about the fact that something's going on the other side when we cross over. I don't know how it works. But that was probably the one time where I really didn't know that I was going to make it through that night. And the next day, was basically trying to recover the bodies. They left. They didn't overrun us totally. Like I said, 7 out of 21 of the Marines were killed that night. Just about everybody got some kind of injury. And that was that movie,